Hey, welcome to another episode of Strange Planet. All right, strap yourself in, put up your feet, and get ready to enjoy. We are going to embark on a discussion of Bigfoot, something I don't spend enough time talking about. And of course, I'm just north of Toronto, not known for Sasquatch sightings, but not too far from here. I bet if you were to jump on the 400 and head north, say north of Barrie, getting up north of Simcoe County, there probably have been, I mean, you're getting into the wilds. Doesn't take long to get up into the Canadian Shield from where I'm sitting. I'm guessing you're going to find, if you talk to the locals, you may have to loosen their lips a little bit, with imbibe a little bit. But if you get them talking, I'm sure there's some stories in the family about Bigfoot sightings here in Ontario. I mean, heck, they're everywhere, right? There have been sightings, I believe, in all 50 states south of the border, even Rhode Island, tiny Rhode Island. I might be wrong about that. Well, I'm about to get schooled on this because I'm about to welcome. He's an avid archer, a marksman, a fisherman, just an all-around outdoorsman. And he's compiled numerous accounts and testimonies of witnesses to Bigfoot in North America, and he is the author of a whole series of books on Bigfoot called Bigfoot Terror in the Woods. I believe it's up to volume 5 or 4. He'll set me straight on that. And a great pleasure to welcome to the program William Sheehan. Welcome to Strange Planet, William. How are you?
Richard, my distinct pleasure to be here with you. It's really awesome, man. And I've listened to you for a long time on Coast as an insider. I'm a hospital technician in a cardiology unit, and I can pull off using my iPhone with an earbud as long as I keep the other ear open to what's going on. And it's one of my favorite things to do when I can pull it off is to listen to you and Ian and George Knapp, Connie Willis, George Norrie, the whole crew, and I'm really thrilled to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. That just reminded me, and I don't know why, when you were talking about, while you're at work and listening with the earphone in one ear, I don't know if you know the story, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Robert F. Kennedy was a huge baseball fan and, of course, a big Red Sox fan. And he was visiting Canada in, I believe it was 1967, and I think he was asked to speak before the New Brunswick legislature, which is kind of, just north of Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And someone took a photograph of him while he was sitting in the gallery, and he had his little transistor radio in his pocket with an earbud going up to his ear, and he was listening to the 67 World Series. I think that was the Red Sox versus the St. Louis Cardinals. So there you go.
That's interesting. And the Secret Service wanted to know what was with the earpiece, Mr. Kennedy.
That's right. Yeah, they're the ones that are supposed to have the earpiece.
That's right.
I mentioned off the top that Bigfoot has been spotted in all 50 states. I may be stretching that. Have they been seen in Rhode Island, do you know?
Nothing that I've heard of. But, I take accounts as they come in. I don't fabricate them. And I'll tell you, your neck of the woods is vibrant, my friend. I mean, I just put together a piece that occurred on Reindeer Lake in a bear camp. And just the other day, I compiled one of the wildest accounts I've ever heard from two different friends. The first had contacted me, an Oregonian, almost 40 years, a logger out there. And he had an account that actually began with his friend Kelly in 1986, in 2017 in the same area.
Wow.
So, these things are happening. By the way, can people see you and I right now, or we're just doing audio?
No, we're doing, it's available as just the regular audio podcast, and then it's also up on the YouTube channel, so they can see you.
Okay. I was going to share with you something this evening while we're together. A lot of people have seen clips of this map or heard of this map and I actually owned the map. And this was put together by the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
If I opened it up, which I won't here, I have a section I'm going to show you. It's about 5 feet by 3 feet. I believe it's made out of Kevlar.
Mm-hmm.
It's indestructible, and it does have a cigarette burn going right through it at one point.
I won't ask.
Well, yeah. It was either a cigarette or a joint.
Yikes.
We'll never know.
When we won't tell. Yeah.
Somebody dropped the head off of something that burned right through it, and the burn doesn't go beyond where it went.
Okay.
But I wanted to show you this tonight. As I said, a lot of people have seen this clip that I'm going to show you.
Mm-hmm.
This came from the survival training base in Washington State. And on a couple of sections of the map, it shows poisonous plants, edible plants.
Mm-hmm.
And one section shows you all of the animals that you should be cautious of in that region. All right. So let me just flip this to you. If you can catch a piece of it,
mm-hmm.
I'll work it down. Now, if you look here, it says dangerous animals.
Yes.
Can you see that?
I can. Looks like a bobcat or a mountain lion, perhaps.
It's a cougar.
A cougar, yeah.
And as you go down, we have a picture of a moose.
Yes, in rutting season, very dangerous.
Right. I believe we have a badger.
Yes.
We have, of course, the black bear.
Mm-hmm.
We move across here. We have a bobcat.
Yes.
A coyote.
Right.
And lo and behold,
oh, ho, ho.
The Sasquatch.
Yes, indeed.
Now, if I could show you this whole map, which we can in this format, this is an official evasion chart, EVC training chart issued by the Air Force. And this is regional to Washington State. They have a big presence up there, up in the woods, the Air Force does.
Yes.
And if you've ever been in the service, they don't fool around or joke around with anything.
No.
It's all official. It's all on the record. And if they're showing you something and telling you this is how the weapon works, this is how you use it, this is what you may encounter up there, this is what you need to avoid, they mean it. And if they're showing you that Bigfoot is a dangerous animal, you can bet your bottom dollar that Bigfoot is there. Now, I had a conversation with another lifer in the military a couple of years back. We were discussing this chart, and he said to me, I know what you're showing me is real because I have seen that chart, but had gone to survival training in a different area. And the chart in his area, which was virtually the same format as this one, front and back, had no Bigfoot on it. But it had other animals that were, and edibles and other things relative to survival that were in and around the area where they would be training. Which told me that at that time, there was no knowledge of Bigfoot where he was going, but there was here. Now, I listened to a man speaking one day about this, and he was at one of the meetings where this map was being shown. And when the question was breached, as you can imagine, everybody seeing the Bigfoot, they were told that if you see these creatures, do not engage them. Do nothing to engage them. And when asked why, they were told that we've had some that have, and it didn't end well. So that was it. Now, you know, I have many reports of some gruesome findings. Bodies wedged between rocks, people on tree limbs found, Uh, I have one gruesome account from Northern California where two bow hunters scoping out a new area to put their tree stands in for the hunt came across a woman's body shoved down over a stump on a long branch extending out from a big pine tree, still clothed and missing a leg. She had a braid in her hair. She was missing one leg, and she was wearing a running shoe on the other leg, shorts, and like a lycra top and what they called a sports bra. She had this limb shoved through her body up in the air on this branch, and they said there was nothing under the branch as far as rocks or anything to climb on where you could have got high enough if you were crazy enough and strong enough to push this body down over the branch. I mean, that is just some of the gruesome stuff that goes on.
I don't want names, obviously, but can you tell me who are reporting these gruesome finds? Are these
just individuals, people who are out there? A tremendous amount. I always say that people see something because they're looking. And my father was a pilot, and I grew up to be what I would call like a trained observer inadvertently because I was his son. We were always identifying every kind of aircraft in the sky, constellations, planets, birds, weather patterns, all kinds of things. So I understand that if you have eyes to see, you will see. And if you're looking and out there, the chances are more likely that you're going to run across something than somebody who's caught up on YouTube on their iPhone. I mean, it's just that simple. I was down by the Fire Island last night, by the Atlantic Ocean, and I scoped out about a half a dozen hawks down there while I was looking around the marshland. That doesn't happen accidentally. I'm looking for them.
right?
I'm out there. I'm a birder. I'm a fisherman. It's my life. And so when I talk to people, like these two fellas in Oregon last week, I have no reason to believe that these people are lying to me. Some sightings are very simple. Fella in northern Michigan, a Yooper, as they call themselves.
Upper Peninsula, right?
Yeah, at the Upper Peninsula, had just learned to drive. This man's in his 80s right now. He contacted me. He had just learned to drive, and he was bringing his mother to another town up there. It started to snow off of the lake pretty heavily. The old rear-wheel drive cars, pretty slippery. And this Bigfoot creature, while they were creeping along at 5-10 miles an hour, standard shift on the column, came walking across the road in front of him. He was shocked. I mean, not a crazy experience, nothing gruesome about it, but there's this huge variation of what, where, when, and how when it comes to Bigfoot. My stance on the creature is this. If you meet up with Bigfoot and go home, you've had a really good day.
That doesn't square with everything we hear. Not everything, but we hear a lot about, they're our brothers. They're in tune with nature. They just want to be left alone. They're communicating with me telepathically. They're spirit animals. It sounds to me like you're telling me, it doesn't sound like you are telling me these are vicious brutes.
Yeah, well, we could go on for hours, and we will go on for whatever time we have. I think there are two things going on here. I think what you have is a spirit being of some kind being mimicked by nefarious forces. And when I say nefarious forces, I'm talking about Satan. I think he and his demons are mimicking a real-life critter. For what reasons, we don't know. And this is why we see a lot of these creatures kind of disappearing behind the veil, on showing up hot on infrared, and then suddenly there's nothing there.
Or you track the footprints and they stop.
And they stop.
Yeah.
Impossible. Impossible. And unless you're willing to call somebody and everybody who sees that all liars, throw them all in one big pot and call them all a bunch of liars, which I'm not, something else is going on there. Now, relative to the flesh and blood creature, which I believe is as real as you and I remember when I was a paper boy and I had a couple of routes. I delivered TV guides. I delivered Newsday here in New York. I delivered a little rag called the Penny Saver. I knew where all the dogs were, be they good or bad, in my area. Because you know why? Richard Sirrett's golden lab would come out wagging its tail, wanting me to pet it when I came by. The other guy up the block, it didn't matter what day of the week it was, that little bastard was coming out to tear my ass apart every time I came by. And when you're talking about a creature like Bigfoot, you have no idea. There are no experts on Bigfoot. I am not an expert on Bigfoot. You have no idea, nor can you even fathom what this creature is thinking, what it is going to do, and what it is not going to do at any given moment. If you think you're going to outrun them, you're wrong. If you think you're going to outfight them, you're wrong. People have put lead on these creatures and they have run away. So, take your chances, my friend, but it won't be me. If I see one at a distance, I'd be content, but I wouldn't be looking to get any closer, like many of these people you see marching around in the woods with no weapons and, flashlights and cameras. Frankly, I think they're out of their mind. I find it entertaining, but my belief is that they're out of their minds.
So let me just get to the podcast here for a second. Bigfoot Terror in the Woods.
Correct.
I don't want you to give it all away because this is an upcoming episode, but you did mention Ontario, and you have an upcoming episode involving this Ontario fishing party. I don't know if that was that Reindeer Lake you referred to?
Well, no. Let's not confuse two different things. What I was discussing with you before was a new account in my volume 10. I'm working on volume 10 now. I have 9 volumes in paperback on Amazon, and the same 9 volumes are all available in Audible, on Audible, iTunes, or Amazon as well. And the books are actually called Bigfoot Terror in the Woods, Sightings and Encounters.
Okay, I'm way behind because I said I think you had volume 5, so I'm way behind. You're up to volume 9, and you're working on volume 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so but going to the podcast, you have an upcoming episode that's ready to drop. I don't want you to give it all away, but it's about this Ontario fishing party witnessing 2 Bigfoot basically squaring off, fighting.
Oh, well, so now I know where you were going with that, which I said your neck of the woods is rife with Bigfoot activity. And if I'm hearing about testimonials over quite a few years, can you imagine what's really going on up there that I'll never know about? Because most of the stuff that happens, you and I are never going to hear about it. And the only reason I hear about things is because I stick my neck out. I have thick skin and I'm willing to open up conversations with people, irregardless of what they think about me after we're done talking.
Right.
But the account that you're talking about actually happened in the early 60s. And in one of my books, I entitled it The Fight. Now, they had taken, and pardon me if I get some of this wrong, it really doesn't matter. The story is what matters. These young boys were taken by a couple of fathers up into Canada. I think it was Alberta. And they were going muskie fishing. This was like a big deal. It was expensive. It was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. They got taken into an area where they then took a float plane and the float plane brought them into this lake. The cabin, the whole thing. I mean, you can imagine some young kids just like, wow, look where we are, man. They were out on the lake in 3 different aluminum boats. He described them as being, I think, 18 or 20 foot. During the day, they were going around this perimeter of a lake with this guide named Lars. And he described the lake as being completely infiltrated with tree growth right up to the waterline. But there were a couple of areas where there was like an open spot. Let's just call it a beach. Not a beach, but a little bit of shoreline here and there.
Mm.
Now, they were facing the shoreline wherever they lined up with these boats and casting into the grass that was on the bottom. Relatively shallow water. I think he said about 6 feet, 4 or 6 feet. Apparently, these muskies were hiding in the grass. And when they cast and brought the plugs back through the grass, bang, they'd strike them. So they're facing 3 boats towards the land. And he told me that they heard a roar coming from one direction. Shortly thereafter, they heard a roar coming from another direction. He made a point of telling me at the time they had asked Lars, like, what is that? And he said, like, it's a bear. And he told me, even as a kid, he didn't believe it was a bear. He had no idea what a bear sounded like, but he didn't believe it was a bear. And he joked with me saying, well, if that's a bear, my friend, he's a really fast runner because I just heard him over here and I'm hearing him over here too. So the roars were becoming more frequent and they seemed to be funneling together, like they were coming together. He said to me, at that point in time, I felt in my heart that a fuse had been lit and a bomb was about to explode. That was his old man version of his memory of the experience. Well, these 2 things, which he didn't know, couldn't see them at the time, began to engage in what he described as a lion fight.
Wow.
He's hearing this like, I can't even fathom what this guy is hearing. And everybody in the boats was like shocked, mouths, jaws dropped, and Lars told them to start the engines. So they fired up the outboards, started moving away from the shoreline as these 2 Bigfoots exit the forest, slapping and biting each other and grappling in this little area where it was clear, eventually falling down and now continuing to fight in the shallow edge of the water.
Wow.
So he said that the men were aghast and the 2 kids were like, let's get the hell out of here. They stopped. They were now about 150 feet off of the shore. And the waves from these guys slamming and grappling with each other was actually moving their boats. At one point, he said it appeared that the one creature was getting the better of the other one. And then he said with one titanic blow, the other creature was basically looking lifeless, laying in the water. The other beast stood up, looked at them, roaring and pounding its chest, turned around and walked up into the woods and left that Bigfoot laying in the water. So they fired up their boats. They were running. They left the whole area. Lars went back the following day, came back and told them that the creature that was in the water was gone. So he didn't know if it died, got dragged off, got up. But one thing he said was the 2 creatures that were fighting never punched each other, which I thought was interesting. Nobody was closing a fist and bashing the other one in the heads. He said it was slapping, grappling like wrestlers,
Yes,
and biting, and he felt that the biting was used to gain an advantage over the other combatant, which I thought was really interesting at the time. But I do have another account out of Vancouver much later, where at a distance, it appears like these guys were seeing two Bigfoot having at it too. So, it doesn't shock me, because we know that bears fight, we know that lions fight, we know that all kinds of creatures in nature, given the right circumstances, duke it out. I mean, I have deer around my property, and during the rut, if I'm out on my deck at night and I'm listening, which I told you, it's my life. I listen, I look, I'm watching, I'm observing. I can hear the racks when they're fighting. You can hear the antlers clacking together,
Sure.
commotion in the woods, and I'm like, oh, those boys are at it again tonight. But, for domination of the females, elk, moose, bear, you name it. There are times when in the animal kingdom, it could mean death to one or the other. I mean, they'll kill somebody. They'll kill themselves, to win out.
We'll take a quick time out. William Sheehan, I got to tell you, I don't think I've ever talked with anyone as passionate about Bigfoot as you are. Back with more in a minute. Stay with us.
Every new season, we find a reason to improve our lives and our health. And C60 Evo organic edible oils deliver noticeable benefits quickly. A spoonful in the morning delivers energy and endurance all day long. And I sleep deeper and wake up feeling refreshed because C60 ESS60 works. Carbon 60 received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1996 when it was used for industrial applications. C60 Evo's ESS60 is a breakthrough technology upgrading C60 to be safe for human and pet consumption. ESS60 has been called a miracle molecule because of the physical and mental benefits people are enjoying. Their lab has a proven track record of 31 years and thousands of happy customers across the world, just like me. So treat yourself, your friends, and your family to C60 Evo and use my link, EVRS, to get 10% off your first order. Again, my link, EVRS, to get 10% off your first order.
Welcome back. William Sheehan is my guest. 9 volumes of Bigfoot Terror in the Woods, also available as audibles, Amazon.com. He's working on volume 10. And we were talking about these two Bigfoot combatants. As you say, no closed fists. The only reason they were biting perhaps was they were trying to gain advantage as they were grappling. It almost sounds like, I don't know, they were observing some kind of Marquess of Queensberry rules here. Like it was not necessarily a fight to the death, or I don't know, but do you think they were in their rutting season? Was this over a female perhaps, or just their territorial? We don't know.
Like I say, Richard, there are no experts. You have an account here, it could be pure bullshit. I don't think so. I always say that there's nothing to gain. I'm not paying these people. What would be the rub on the other side? Oh, I pulled one over on WJ Sheehan. He's nothing but a fraud. Okay, good for you.
Yeah.
So maybe you did. But I've had people in tears, choked up and in tears on the other end of the phone, recounting what they went through. Now, my wife just died in July.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's been a tough time. But you want to talk about tears. And when I recount our life together and other things, it brings me to tears. It's a serious matter. You don't just start talking to me about some incidental subject matter and start getting choked up and say, I got to excuse myself for a minute and walk away sobbing. What makes individuals sell the house of their dreams and move away, saying that they had problems with one of these creatures on their property and were afraid?
You got to tell me that story.
Well, there's many of them. For instance, I had a couple in Maine. They were looking for a better place just a little more woodsy environment. They moved from one area of Maine to another. They came across what you would call their dream house, an older place. And in fact, they were gardeners, and the people who were selling the house were gardeners as well. So it was like a perfect fit. They had all these beautiful beds and places to plant things. They had some greenhouses, and they made the move. You're not going to believe this. So over a period of time, they left a lot of their tools outside, little hand spades, shovels, rakes. And they started to find things missing. So one saying to the other one, honey, what'd you do with my spade? And she says to him, where's my rake? And one day they were out in the woods walking around the property, and they start to find some of these tools. They're in the woods, leaning against a tree, laying over here, over there, and they're looking at each other like, I didn't do it. He's like, I didn't do it either. I don't know how they got out here. So they pull all the tools back in that they could find, and they painted all of the handles on them like red or yellow, whatever color it was. So they were easily identifiable. They started putting them all away, and the only thing they were leaving out now was little hand spades on this bistro table on their patio. So one day, the hand spade is missing. And now they're beyond like you did it or you did it or you left it. They went out looking. They're walking through the trees behind their property. Now, Richard, this is a one-piece billet aluminum hand spade. Very similar to, I'm sure, many of the listeners have seen them or used them. Rubber handle on a single piece of aluminum, made on a lathe or a CNC machine, whatever they use to make them. He sees this red-handled little, I don't even know, is it a proper thing to call it a spade? A little hand shovel?
Yeah, that's what we call them.
Okay.
A trowel.
A trowel, like you'd use for potting plants.
Yes, a trowel.
All right. He sees the handle about 9 feet off the ground sticking out of the side of a tree. The rest of the spade or trowel is shoved into the side of the tree up to the freaking hilt. He's like beyond himself. Like, what the heck am I looking at?
Like someone fired it out of a gun.
You look at them, maybe there's a little bit of an edge to them, but they're not sharp. It's not like an arrowhead.
No, aluminum is pretty soft.
Yeah, and it was shoved in the tree. He got a ladder, went out there just to get up a little closer and see. There was nothing he was going to do it. He was not going to pull it out. And he actually called the police. Because now it was a couple of incidents. It was all the missing tools found out in the woods. Now he finds this thing up in the tree. He called the cop. The cop went out there and looked at it like, man, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea what we're looking at here, how that got there. I don't know. If you have any more problems, give us a call. They had a greenhouse, and they also had some raised beds outside where they were growing, I think it was tomatoes. They had a fence around it, chicken wire with a little gate, 2x4 construction, a little swing gate with a spring on it. Well, one day they came out, the gate was shut, and everything in the garden had been eaten, and all of the plants were just like mashed or destroyed. Footprints, big footprints, all over the place in this raised bed with soft soil. Now they were like, what the, Eventually, this thing went into their greenhouse, pulled up everything that was growing in there, just took the door right off the thing and went in, again with footprints in the soft loam. And finally, they sold out and left. So I don't know how you rightfully sell a house like that.
Yeah, you got to have full disclosure, right? You're supposed to have a full disclosure.
I don't know, man. It's like selling a haunted house.
Exactly.
I've known people that have had poltergeist activity and ghost issues who did sell their house to somebody else.
Well, hey, there's people that lap that stuff up. They want to live in a haunted house, but
No, I'm talking about people who didn't tell them it was haunted.
oh, they didn't tell them.
Yeah,
Oh,
they just sold it.
yeah.
So it happens.
So whereabouts are? I don't want you to divulge your exact location, but whereabouts are you in New York? No, New York, upstate.
Oh, no, I have no problem telling you where I am. I'm out on Eastern Long Island in Suffolk County.
Suffolk County. Okay.
Yeah, I live in a town called Middle Island.
Are there
So
Bigfoot on Long Island?
no,
No.
no.
Okay.
But I have personally, now here's another thing, another reason why I don't have any axe to grind with anybody. I have had numerous angelic encounters in my lifetime, and I've also had many UFO sightings and encounters right here on Long Island. I do have another book out called UFO Sightings and Encounters, which I'm just finishing up in Audible right now, but it is in paperback, in which I have several of my own encounters in that book. So, you know, we're talking UFOs, we're talking Bigfoot, we're talking things that are strange. Let's face it, there are a lot of unanswerable and unanswered questions surrounding us and this planet and our lives on this planet. We're not going to have those answers. You know, I
It's
think
job security for folks like us.
yeah, well, you know, it's just not going to happen. You know, like I think I told you I'm a evangelist,
Yes.
and when my wife was dying, I was praying in tears to God. Why no miracle for Paula? And I said to him, I know you perform miracles today. I know that you performed miracles when you were here on earth. Why no miracle for Paula? And I was left with God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. Neither can we understand him. There's this relationship there that is way beyond anything we could fathom or comprehend. We don't know the beginning and the end. We don't know about Bigfoot. We don't know about the supernatural blend of Bigfoot. We don't have the answers as to why we're seeing UFOs, why Roswell occurred, why all of these witnesses see these things, and that all these questions remain unanswered, or lies are told about them, or they try to besmirch their good name by calling them fools and ignoramuses, you know, and saying they don't know what they're looking at. I say nonsense, because people like myself are seeing and experiencing things, and they're looking for somebody that they can talk to about it. I'm one of those people you can talk to about it, and they know that, and they know that they don't have to be afraid of me, and I'm not going to share their names, and I'm not going to make an open show of them anywhere. I'm simply slipping everything they tell me, including my own experiences, into my mental database, and I'm putting the pieces together. There are patterns. There are definitely patterns, and there are things going on here that are repetitious when it comes to Bigfoot. There's certainly creatures of habit. They take advantage of their surroundings. They are definitely omnivores. They seem to frequent orchards, rivers, fish, turtles, animals of all sorts. I have one account, a hunter, I believe it was in Washington. He was coming over a rise in the woods, and he saw a lot of ravens circling and cawing over this area. Now, his thought as an experienced hunter was caution. There's probably a cougar or a bear on the ground below them, possibly eating something or on a kill right now. He's armed. He approaches this slight grade where he could now see the base of the tree. What he didn't realize was it wasn't the base of the tree that he needed to be looking at. His prize was in the tree, and it was a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot was ravaging the nests up in the branches. So this thing had climbed the tree, was taking chicks or eggs, whatever was in there. Now listen to this. When he's done with this nest, there was another nest a little higher up on the other side. This dude told me when he saw this Bigfoot starting to make moves towards that nest, he said, I didn't think the branches would support him. And guess what? He started going up there. The first branch gave way. This freaking critter started coming down ass over tea kettle, bouncing off of these limbs till it hit the ground, and it laid there, and he thought it was dead. And he said that some of the ravens started to come down closer and were like cawing at it, like, you got your just reward.
Yeah.
You know, Well, he watched this thing for a little while, but finally it kind of like rolled over, wound up getting up, and limped away into the woods. Now, that's not the first time somebody has told me that they've seen a Bigfoot in a tree. I probably had at least 3, maybe 4 encounters. I know there was one in Yosemite, and it's hard for me to remember. There's so many things, but when I talk to people, they come out. Like
All
things come into my head. Go ahead.
William, we're going to take another time out, come back. Absolutely riveting. William Sheehan. Stay with us.
November reminds us to be thankful and focused on boosting our radiant health before winter. And I use a potent remedy that's improved the quality of my life and deepened my sleep as well. I take C60 Evo olive oil every morning, and I have a lot more energy and mental focus all day long. My workouts are easier, and I have a lot more endurance. If you're into competitive sports, this is a game changer. Health is our greatest wealth, and Pura C60 ESS60 really works. ESS60 is a breakthrough technology delivering the carbon-60 miracle molecule for humans and pets. Check out the C60 Evo holiday gift collections for everyone on your list. They make amazing skin, lip, and hair repair serum that deliver noticeable results quickly. C60 Evo's lab has an impressive track record of 31 years and, of course, my personal recommendation. You deserve the best remedies on earth, and so do those you love. Buy direct from the lab and upgrade your life today. Use my code EVRS to save 10% off your first order. Again, my code EVRS and save 10% off your first order.
Well, I tell you what, I am absolutely riveted speaking with William Sheehan, quickly becoming my favorite guest. William, how did this all begin for you? I mean, you're in Long Island. Did you pick Long Island because there are no Bigfoot there? You'd heard the stories that I'm going to safe ground.
Well, you know, I've lived here my whole life. We came out from the city. My father worked for the Federal Aviation Administration, and he took a transfer from LaGuardia Airport, I believe it was, or Kennedy, to MacArthur, which is a stone's throw away from where I live. And at that time, that airport was slated for growth, as was Suffolk County at that time. We had a lot of builders out here. There was Zeidler and Levitt and Sid Farber. These guys were buying big tracts of land and putting up developments. You know, 100 houses, 200 houses, 300 houses, putting in streets, bringing in infrastructure, lights, cameras, action. And we were part of that group. And back then, all of the men worked for the phone company, the FAA, the lighting company. You worked for a company, Grumman Aerospace, Grumman.
Mm.
They employed tens upon tens of thousands of people with career jobs. And we were part of that. We came out And I almost forgot your question, how I broke into this. How did I get where I am? Is that what you asked me, right?
Yeah, I mean, because as you say, you're in Long Island, no Bigfoot there, and yet you have
Yeah.
this incredible passion. I was kind of joking, maybe you chose Long Island knowing what you do about Bigfoot. You wanted to put some safe distance between you and
Well, I'll tell you, Richard, I have a degree in occupational therapy, uh, a license as a massage therapist, neither of which I do anything with anymore. I'm a technician in a cardiothoracic unit in the hospital where I work. We're monitoring heart and lung function. I remember seeing the Patty film when I was a younger man.
mm-hmm.
My first instinct at that time was, wow, that's a real creature. That was my opinion instantaneously having seen that film. Now, fast forward in my life to where I had been to college. Anatomy, physiology, neurology, myology, kinesiology, pathology. Here I am, a therapist working with physical body, all kinds of maladies, muscular issues, sprains, strains, pulls, rehabilitation. I knew what I was looking at. I know what skin feels like. I know what muscles look like when they're attached to skin. I know what movements look like in the human body when I see you walking or going up a set of stairs or lying down or sitting up. Everything gets engaged in different ways in the body depending on what you're doing. Extending an arm, stepping up a stair, sitting down. When I see that Patty film later on in life and really start to examine the movements, it completely reinforced my initial belief that this is a living creature. You couldn't fake it. You'd have to spray rubber on that thing and glue hair to it, and it would have to be a pretty freaky looking mammoth creature to make that happen. Patty has a strange body. If you look at that film,
yeah, the pendulous breast. It's a female.
it's an awkward looking structure. She's got a big buttock. The back kind of comes in over the pelvis. The arms and the shoulders are just kind of rounded and hunching over. The size of the feet and the legs and the thighs, everything is just really weird about it. That is not any human being wearing any kind of costume. That is a living creature that Patterson caught on that camera that day. And $1 to a donut, that guy fell just like you saw the camera do. He was freaking out, trying to get the camera going, keeping an eye on this thing, trying to get some footage. Bob Gimlin was there. And this is what happened. This is not, I don't even care. I don't give a rat's ass what anybody says about that film. All I know is I know it's real, and that's enough for me.
So the die was cast when you saw that film.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, real creature. And I proved it more so to myself later in life, having got some education about, anatomical makeup, musculature, movement. There's no doubt about it.
Have you ever gone out into the field looking for Bigfoot to the Pacific Northwest or anywhere?
I have no interest. None. I don't want to be near this thing under any circumstances. And if I was to go out there, I'd be jacked up with so much armament, it would make your head spin. I wouldn't go near that thing with anything less than a pump action with slugs in it and maybe 2 large revolvers on my sides. And I'm not even certain you're going to stop that thing. I'm not even certain you're going to put it down before it kills you.
Well, let me ask you this then. Would you be in favor, if necessary, because Think of the advances to science if we had a body and we can never find a body, whether it's because they bury their own or who knows.
Mhm.
Would you be in favor, if necessary, absolutely necessary, trapping or killing a Bigfoot in order to study them?
Well, I can't say for myself because I don't think it's up to me, and I think bodies have already been found. And for some reason, like these giant humans that have been dug up and photographed going back 150 years, these things seem to disappear. Again, you and I don't have the availability, just like the UFO crash at Roswell and many others. Where did this stuff go, and who decided we don't need to see it? That's the freaking problem. Who decides that you and I don't have the right to, or need to, or desire to see some of this stuff and make our own appraisal of what it is and what we can do with it? Why is all this stuff scurried away and hidden? Now, I had a Mexican couple, Wilfredo and Helena Gomez. They were driving on a highway up here in the Northeast at night, came across a debris field on the highway. Parts, like an accident had happened. Up the road, on the shoulder in the distance, was a tractor-trailer truck on the shoulder with the flashers on. So they're seeing broken light fixtures, a mirror, debris on the road. Now Wilfredo's saying it was from that truck. So they went around it, went up. Wilfredo jumps up on the cab of the truck, and the man is sitting over the wheel with his hands on his head. What Wilfredo didn't understand at the time, which he learned moments later, the man's head had broken the windshield, and he was holding his head. Wilfredo shouts into the cab, "Hey, mister, are you all right?" And he doesn't answer him. He repeats it, "Hey, are you okay?" The guy turns to him and says, "I just ran into a Bigfoot that was chasing a deer across the highway back there." Wilfredo looks at the guy like, what freaking planet are you from, man? But he can't deny what he's seen in the street and his truck. The fender was bashed in, the light was bashed in, the radiator was bashed in. He was leaking water on the street. Wilfredo calls the cops. One cop comes, an ambulance comes, another cop comes. Finally, they get the guy out of the truck. Wilfredo's trying to tell the one guy what the guy told him. The one cop goes walking back down the road. Now, I should have told you, when Wilfredo was coming up with Helena, as they're passing the debris, he saw something on the shoulder of the road. But they didn't stop. And the cop is walking back with Wilfredo trailing behind him now, and he tells him to stand back. Wilfredo said the cop shone a light onto this thing that was on the side of the road, and he said it looked like a big gorilla. He saw an eye blink, and he saw the creature raising its fingers like this. The cop told him to stand down, and he pumped several shots into this creature on the shoulder of the road. And pretty much that ended the night for Wilfredo and his wife. They left, and what happened. But Wilfredo said that they thought the next day, like, what a headline this is going to be. Or a news blurb on the local station. Nothing. He actually called up to find out why they weren't showing this, or hadn't they been notified of it or whatnot, and they said they knew nothing about it. Whose fault is that? Did they know anything about it? Maybe not. Maybe the call was never made.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had another guy, a sheriff, was showing up at a multiple car accident in the fog. I think it was in the Midwest. It was one of these situations where fog and weather had set in, and it was just a huge pileup. We're talking, 50 cars, 75 cars and trucks, just like bang, 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 bang. Everybody being surprised by what had happened before them. This dude told me that there was a box truck that was on its side and broken open. The sidewall, there's nothing to them. They're made out of crap.
Yeah.
If you go inside, it's just aluminum ribbing with a skin on it, and typically a wood deck or something in there, The truck was broken open, and there was an aluminum container that looked the size of a large coffin laying on the ground next to the truck. And inside of that thing, tumbled over, like kind of in and out, was a Bigfoot. That's what he said to me.
The body of a Bigfoot.
The body of a Bigfoot was being transported in this box truck inside an aluminum, gigantic coffin-like structure. And this truck just happened to be involved in this accident. The cargo came out, and it was now laying there. And there were all kinds of people walking around. They were not, everybody wasn't injured or needed to be taken away in an ambulance.
They all saw.
A lot of people just crashed, got out of the car, were trying to stay out of the way, not wondering what to do or how to act, like mayhem. He saw this thing, and they were all stuck there. Nobody was going anywhere. They had to wait for other people to come and the weather to lift, and it was a big deal for many, many hours. He said that other vehicles showed up later in the day, went over to the area where this creature was with the container, took care of business over there, put it in another vehicle, and took off with it.
Military?
I don't know. Unidentified.
Unbelievable. I could talk with you all night, William. How do people find you? I mean, to tell you these stories.
Well, it's easy. Years ago, I'm not even sure I could pull it off now. You used to be able to there were like these interconnected rag newspapers, these little things you get on a stand for free. People don't even know what I'm talking about now. Like we used to have the Bylines Press and Swap and Sell.
Yeah, I remember the Penny Saver.
Well, Penny Saver, yeah, that's kind of like that. I think the Penny Saver's still around. But there was a lot of them. And some of these papers were interconnected across the country. In other words, Richard Serra's publishing house would do some newspapers around here, but they were also involved in the Midwest. They had another rag over here. And you could buy really cheap advertisements in these papers and run a little ad, wanted. And so wanted, anyone who has seen Bigfoot or has interacted with them. Things like that. And you'd leave an address, a P.O. box. People would respond back. Now, with the podcast in my books, I put in the front of the book, if you've seen something, say something. And they know how to get in touch with me. Since I've launched the podcast, the amount of queries, and people like what I'm doing, they like our podcast. Since I've launched the podcast, I have stuff coming in on a regular basis, man. That's just freaking blow your mind. People sending me pictures and descriptions and maps of the areas and footprint shots. And, there are people out there, Richard. We live, when I say we, I don't know about you, I speak for myself. Where I live in Suffolk County is definitely not a rural location. There are some nice areas. I'm a fisherman. I was down at the shore last night, Shinnecock Inlet down by Fire Island. There are areas you can go to But in general, there's a lot of people living on this real estate. When I see and interview and speak to people where they live, what they do, and what the scenery looks like outside of their neighborhood, there is no comparison.
Wilderness.
Nothing but trees. You know, Richard, there's 9.5 million square miles of real estate in North America. Think about that. 9.5 million square miles. If you do a flyover at night over Canada or the United States, do you know what you're going to see out of the window?
Trees.
Nothing. It's black.
Right.
There's no lights. You won't see a highway or a car for hours. What do you think are the possibilities that there are things walking around out there that we're not going to run into?
Well, you know what? Prior to our conversation, I hadn't given it as much thought as I should have. Now, I'm thinking twice about taking my boys camping.
Richard, I have a punchline on the end of every podcast, and it's this. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight. I say that at the end of every podcast, and I mean it.
And that's the way we'll end this one. William, you, sir, are a treasure. It's great to meet you.
The pleasure is all mine, Richard. I hope we do it again.
Oh, we will. Rest assured, we will.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe at strangeplanetpodcast.com.